All right, welcome back to the 80 Star Basketball Channel, the only star basketball channel, bringing you the Australian folks from down under. We got Nicholas Schuster, um, and he's the one kind of putting together some of the star. He kind of heads and controls the star group in Australia, and he's going to kind of talk to that today. And we're going to kind of go over some, some of the talking about international, like some of these deals that you can do international and do some transacting and people that have, because we got star collectors worldwide. I knew we had a fairly decent group in Australia, and that was kind of, strength there. But I didn't know how serious, and it's definitely with my recent transaction there, I just bought a few, so I can talk to the when we get there. But Nick, go ahead and tell us about yourself and tell us how you got started and what you've been doing.
Thank you so much, Ryan. It's my pleasure to be here, guys. And g'day from Australia, from Brisbane. It's an unusual accent that we have over here, but I think you guys will be getting used to it as we build tighter and tighter relationships over the next few years. So
And
I'm a
I
guy.
really quickly, sorry to interrupt you. I'm going to
Yes.
show you the picture you sent
How
me
good was this?
showing where I thought this was great. Nick sent this, and I'm assuming that's kind of how the geography kind of lays out, like maybe in temperature and stuff, like for how you have it kind of. I thought this was fantastic. I cracked up when I saw this early morning. And Brisbane, so you're right over here in this circled
Yep.
area.
We're the border between the green and the blue. So Queensland and New South Wales is our most populated state, and that's where you live, Ryan. That's the California of Australia right there. So I'm in the Florida and doing my research before our interview. The city that I live in, Brisbane, it's most like Orlando, similar temperature, similar population, tourist oriented. And when I'm trading with US folks, I like to send some of them that I'm trading with this type of picture so they know what Australia is like compared to the US.
That is so cool. I'm so glad you said that. Immediately, everything kind of made sense. I'm like, oh, it's dry over here. Okay, it's humid over
Yes.
here. Could easily, I thought that was fantastic. So thanks for
Thank
that.
you. Pleasure.
All right. So sorry to interrupt. You can restart there.
No, that's fine. So, I'm a guy in my early 40s. I grew up in a smaller town, and growing up in the late 80s and early 90s, who do you think was the best thing since sliced bread? It was all about Michael Jordan. And I grew up with a lot of the indigenous kids. We call them Aboriginals here, darker skinned guys.
Yeah.
And they're all wearing the Michael Jordan singlets and the caps, and we're watching the basketball on TV because Australia has different sports. We have cricket and rugby league and rugby, but basketball was huge in the 90s just because of Jordan. And so what would happen every Saturday, Ryan, after our school week is we would head down to the town and we would go to the local card shop and we would just be eyeing off these Michael Jordan cards. Back then, very few of them were graded. They were all in screw down screw
Yeah,
down
yeah. We didn't have,
cases, and
yeah.
obviously we know the problem with that now. But we would be eyeing off these cards, and I think I might have seen a Fleer 57 once, but I had no exposure to Star at all. And we were buying the packs that you would buy in the 90s, and Collector's Choice and Upper Deck and Skybox, and we'd get Jordan Commons, and we were pretty excited. And we would read the Beckett magazines, and we didn't really know what they were worth. And so obviously you go through high school, you lose touch with those things. I went to university, I started my career, and like many people, it was COVID. And in Australia, we had time and we had lockdowns. And I thought, why don't I get myself an adult hobby? I have some businesses, so I had some money to spend. And so I started looking around and I found a small group in the US that was dedicated to the Fleer rookies. And I bought a 57 and a sticker. And then I kept looking and I'm like, the first card that I saw that really took my eye was the 101. And I found a guy in Australia who sold me his 101, and we'll come back to this.
The true rookie.
He's a well-known guy, and so that started my addiction, Ryan. So I shifted very early from Fleer straight to Star, and I haven't looked back. So that's been my last 2 years.
Gotcha, gotcha. Yeah, and I think it, and I actually grew up, buying the packs. I actually, was in a, my dad, I was at, we were in a flea market. My brother brought some, and we were opening up packs of 86, and I really got into 88. So I had the packs, and yeah, it was definitely fun to go to the card shops and everything. So, and generally our first exposures because of mass, and especially being kids. Star cards were expensive and they're rare. So even back then, $200 for a card was a lot. And but to find it because you didn't have the internet. So you only had card shops. But it is interesting to hear that you actually had a local card shop that
Yes,
you could go into, and that's awesome. Pick up
it
packs.
was. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that you're right. The cards are expensive. And like I remember back then, my dad's annual wage was $25,000 and we were a single income family. So I wasn't spending any more than my allowance on a pack of
Yep.
cards, that's for sure.
Yeah, you get a couple of bucks and that was it. Oh, I was with you fully. Totally understand. Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep. So and then so you that's how you started. And then when you started getting into Star and started doing it, what made you kind of put together the group?
Yeah, so through one of my early mentors, early as in I've only been doing this journey seriously for 2 years, Ryan. I feel a little late to the party. One of my favorite sayings is the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, and the second best time is now.
Yep.
I met a guy in Australia that he might be a bit embarrassed from me calling him this. I call him the Star Father. His name's Mike Jones. He's very well known in this community.
Uh-huh.
And so Mike was the gentleman that sold me my first 101. And Mike said you should join this star community. So he invited me to the 83 to 86 star group run by Michael Cabrera and Eric Park. And my God, I was just hooked, Ryan. So I would be in that group for a couple of hours a day. I'd be looking through the previous posts. I'd be wanting to understand more about what these star cards actually were because I had to do a fairly late education. And what I mean is, I didn't know how many star cards there were. I didn't know how rare they were. I knew that I wanted to buy Michael Jordan cards that were of high value, where their value didn't waver much, where it didn't drop, something of investment quality. So something, 4 and 5 figures. Obviously, some are even 6 figures. And something that was rare. So obviously, when I started to learn about the population counts of the star cards relative to, the Fleer, the fact it's 10% rarer, population count of 4,000 versus 40,000 for the Fleer rookie. I think that those qualities, Ryan, were what really had me hooked, realizing that this is fun, but it's an investment and it's actually safe. We're sitting here in Australia, it's the 8th of April, and our stock market's just dropped 10%. I guarantee the 101 value didn't drop 10% in the last week, Ryan.
Exactly. No, I'm so glad you touched on it. That's one thing that I've been saying in some of my recent videos that I have been talking about. I've actually been purchasing. And it's not, you never, timing a bottom is impossible. I now learned that.
Mm.
And it's just something that won't, and especially you've now had, if you know your charts and stuff. We've had, kind of from the peak, we had basically a FOMO takeoff, which, as I was saying in my channels, I didn't like the speed of it. And it was like, be hesitant. Now everything's come down. It's pulled back down about 50% from peak. And to me, that's where you buy, and that's what I'm doing. So I'm actually kind of getting into some of them now because as I'm watching daily, I was just looking at PSA 6 101s that were hitting 58,000, 50,000 for multiple and 58,000. And right now you can pick one up. The last bunch have gone for about 26. So, you're at that halfway threshold and it's not the bottom, but they're never going to hit that, back. Everyone kind of remembers the price that when they started, oh, they're 15,000 here and I want them to go back to then. Well, that doesn't happen with the demand this last year. So much more, demand has been created and so much more awareness and so many more social media people thinking, hey, the 101 is the true rookie card. I think I just showed that clip. Probably one of the biggest clips I've shown was Jeremy Lee on his cast, and 3 out of 4 people, um, other well-known people who, online, and they all said, the Star Jordan 101 is the rookie. And I thought that, was kind of like seeing stuff like that. That's what's changed. So it's it's definitely the awareness and growing. So I see this is just to me an ample time to kind of get into it for newbies, especially newbies and for people who maybe gave one up and start to look at picking one up again.
And Ryan, I think you just described my story to a T. So I remember in the group 2 years ago, the big star group in the US, the supply was so much greater. People would negotiate more on the prices of the cards. Like when we look at market conditions, I've always been interested in finance and assets and things like that. So I joined this group. There are all these lovely cards. They're obviously worth money, but you can negotiate someone down 10 or even 15%. And I've always prided myself on understanding the market value of something. And what I've noticed, especially in the last year, Ryan, is the supply is literally drying up. And as you describe, it's a situation of more people being interested. So the people with the good cards know their worth and they're not going to negotiate as much on them, which is fair. And if you want to find bargains, you have to look really hard. And to be honest, you've got to find people who are in situations where they either want to sell the cards or they may not know the mountain of value that they're sitting on. So I have loved building my collection during a time where finding them is actually getting harder and harder and harder. And I'm so happy I started with the big cards. This is what my mentors, Mike and another guy, Adam Knoll, who's very well known here in Australia. These guys are both very active in the star group. That's what they said. Nick, get the big cards first.
Yep. Oh, yeah, you're dead correct. I always recommend for people the five, get the 84s, get the 384 base, get the base Jordans first. Like, the Gatorades and the other subset cards, get those next, kind of thing, if that's where you're gonna go. But get the 101 first and foremost, because that one can jump the fastest. But the 288, the 195, the CK26, and I recommend the 117, the second year Jordan. That those are my top five that I always say, hey, that's kind of the core. After that, the prices I don't think I don't want to say fluctuate as much. They obviously can jump like they all did, but I kind of call those the five core cards that I'm seeing. And the
I think you'd
CK20.
add the crunch to that, wouldn't you, to be honest? Like it's getting rarer and rarer and rarer.
It's not
Like,
about rarity, actually, even it's about demand because the reason I say
yeah.
the base set cards, the Crunch and Munch is highly desirable. It's probably, I want to say it's the rarest of the insert ones other than the CK26, but it might even be rarer than that one. I'd have to look at the pop counts, but it's not about desirability. It's about demand. The reason I say those five is because if interest in Star starts growing, you have set builders and those PSA set registries and stuff that people go after. That's what the big deal about PSA grading and stuff and for the set registries. Well, all those base set cards, not only are they, the Star Jordans, but set collectors get those just because they're the sets. So they actually have extra demand as opposed to the subsets. But yeah, the Crunch and Munch would probably be like number six. Like it's like right after, that's definitely the desirable cards. But just like you said, the big ones first, totally agree with that. That is the route. So yeah, good advice.
Yeah, agreed. And like the question you asked me earlier, you asked me about starting a group. So what happened was I was finding there was a Michael Jordan Australian Facebook group, and most of the posts were 90s cards and inserts and autos and things like that. But every now and then a star card would pop up in that group, Ryan, and I would message the person, we would have a conversation. Sometimes they knew what they had, sometimes they didn't. And so I was watching the USA group get more popular, get really good engagement. I was making friends with many people in the US group, and I thought, why don't we create our own group in Australia? Because I want to speak to some of the problems that people buying and selling internationally have next, Ryan, if that's okay.
Yeah, great,
So
great segue.
I remember, I remember when I bought my first two cards, those two Fleers. I had them shipped to Australia. I paid with PayPal goods and services. So immediately you lose 3%. Immediately you pay PayPal's poor exchange rate. That's another 2 to 3% as it is. And then my cards hadn't shown up, Ryan, and I'm like, what's happening? And I got a letter from Customs, and I'm like, oh my God, Customs has got my cards. Customs in
Um,
Australia is pretty tough. They put tariffs. That's the buzzword. They put tariffs on any items coming into Australia that are worth more than 1,000 Australian dollars, and that's basically every single Star card. The government charges you an extra goods and services tax and a sales tax, so you pay an extra 15% on what you bring in
oh,
here.
wow.
So here was this guy, me, buying my first ever card, getting stung by PayPal, getting stung by a poor exchange rate, having to ship it. It took 3 to 4 months, and it gets caught by customs. And so I'm building a community over here, and I'm speaking to these newfound friends and saying, do you guys know a better way? How do we actually do this and preserve the value of the card that you purchased? And there's a lot of big buyers in Australia. Australia is actually a very wealthy country, Ryan. I think the average salary here is about 90 to $100,000 across the board. That's employed and
Okay.
unemployed. So yeah, very wealthy country. So a lot of people very interested in Star, but we've had logistical challenges. If you're not buying and selling from other people in Australia, I'd say 90% of the transactions I've done, well, probably 95 to be honest, have been with friends in the US.
Gotcha.
And so we're going to speak in this video about the way that we do that. And I suppose I hope to inspire people who are internationally and help them to break down the barriers and open the borders up, so to speak, for buying cards from overseas because it can be done well. I've only ever been scammed once, and the other 70 or 80 transactions I've done in the last 2 years have been absolutely perfect.
All right, great. Yes. And speaking of that, I'm glad you started there. I real quickly would just say I just did a transaction for the first time with someone in Australia. So fairly
Good friend of
decent.
mine, so
Yeah.
excellent. He's
Yep.
got good cards.
Decent dollar amount. And I had to set up Wise what I did. So for all the US people, so if you're going to do a transaction with someone in Australia, and I'm not talking to ship my cards, I'm just talking with someone who actually has the cards physically. You are going to run into the problem of having to do a currency exchange, and that's what Wise takes care of. And I signed up for Wise. It's not like a super fast 2 minute thing, but it took about 15 minutes only. So I set it up in 15 minutes and was able to do the basically essentially becomes a wire transfer, but it facilitates the wire transfer and does the currency exchange for PayPal wanted to charge let's just say it was well into the hundreds for the fee. And this fee was literally, I think it was 1/15 or 1/14 of what PayPal's fee for the currency exchange was. So I highly recommend Wise. It takes a few minutes. So people who want to do transactions, setting up Wise is not hard, just takes a few minutes. That's about it. And once you do it, now I basically can buy, easy. And so for folks in the States. And so if
And
you
the way
want
that
to,
yeah, the way that I use it, Ryan. So one of my first purchases was a 101 from somebody in the Star group, and he actually put me onto Wise. His name's Kenny, so I'd like to thank Kenny for that. And I suppose I've developed some rules myself for how I transact and who I'm transacting with over the last 2 years, Ryan. So I will use Wise when I'm using it with a trusted friend or someone who's well known in the US Star group and has a lot of vouchers, provided that person is also happy to receive a wire transfer. Sometimes people like to receive PayPal. Interestingly, two of the large payment processors that you guys use in the US, Venmo and Zelle, neither of them exist here in Australia. And I've tried to set up accounts for both, and you need a US physical address, so that
that's
cannot be
good to
done.
know. Thanks for saying that. Right. There isn't
Yeah, yeah,
Venmo and Zelle.
absolutely, Ryan. If I'm transacting with someone for the first time or someone who I don't have vouchers for, I will almost always use PayPal goods and services, and I will just cop the fee because the most important thing for me is receiving the card that I've paid for. And I think that it's good to have two or three options to transact. And I have found Wise to be very reliable, very fast. I just bought a card on Wise from a trusted member of your group yesterday. He's been selling cards for years in the group. I don't need to ask for vouchers. He's happy to receive a wire transfer. And I got an excellent exchange rate, and I probably saved myself 3% of that total transaction through going through Wise, Ryan. So yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, yeah. I was shocked when I saw the PayPal fees for my or for the PayPal fees that were there, and I mean it was so high that would have been almost a deal breaker. So
Well, that's what I was going to ask is sometimes like have you not bought from overseas because of the complexity and the lost money through the process? Like, has that been a barrier for you?
it would be it depends where it would be a deterrent. I haven't run into the situation where I've been there. I'm kind of generally I'm not. I don't want to say fearful of such things. Like this one, I knew the person who was a trusted member of the group, and I was so I was okay there. Obviously, there's things like going through Wise. You have to give everything, Social Security. You have to hook up your bank. Just these things that need to happen. So um, I'm willing to go through that. Some people might be deterred, but I'm
Yes.
kind of saying is that's what I'm trying to vouch for that. No, it's not that hard. Wise is good. It's a good way to do it. And for people who are not familiar, because remember, in the States, we all have like, right, PayPal's, Venmo and Zelle, and you add something to it that's kind of more complex to set up, or it takes a little bit longer. Some people do back off, and
Mm.
you don't need to. It's just pretty much an easy way. But I can't. I'm trying to think. I think I've done a couple of transactions here and there. And I think some people before that I may not have has shipped my cards, but you can go ahead and explain that one.
Yep, I will. I just want to finish on Wise. I've got one comment for
Sure.
your US listeners. If you set up Wise, you make it easy for us Australians to buy from you. And that's really critical. So like if you're a big seller or a regular seller or just a
Great
entry
point.
level seller, if you say to me, I'd like to see this card and I've got Wise, you make my decision easy. If I have to go through PayPal, pay three figures in a fee, lose 3 cents on the dollar for every transaction, I start to think about it, and guess what I do? I'm probably going to nail you down on the price. If you've got a 195 you want to sell me, Ryan, for $3,000, I'd rather give you $3,000 on Wise than lose $300 of that transaction on PayPal and only offer you 2,700.
Yeah.
So that's how you get the best fee when you're dealing with people overseas is you use a payment processing system that's universal, good for both of you, minimizes fees, minimizes exchange rates.
And it's international for everywhere. So it's not
Yep,
even just Australia.
exactly.
I know there's some over in England, and there's European friends that we have that I see some of those up there. But Australia seems to have definitely a good, strong contingent group, and it's good to see. But yeah, so both of us kind of hoping, for people that, if they run into the thing where they set up Wise, you set it up one time and you're good to go.
Yep,
Very
that's
helpful.
brilliant, guys. And so the next thing, Ryan, I'll talk about is one of the barriers that I've faced when I'm transacting and buying and selling with people in the US, which is how to store cards, where to keep them. And so I was recommended fairly early on in my journey, lovely man named Brian Wells, who owns a business called Ship My Cards. So when people ask me what Ship My Cards is, I tell them it's a private vault, which is probably a simplistic way of describing it. But I believe it's also connected to a US Postal Service depot. And that's what makes it so good, is that Brian runs a business where you can have your cards shipped to him and he will store them for you. And you've got an account where you can see your card at any given time. You can see how long it's there for. You have multiple functions through Ship My Card. So uh, when I buy a card that I think I'm going to upgrade from someone in the USA, Ryan, like I remember buying um, a best of the new set off eBay. And I was like, okay, it's an entry level set. I'm probably not going to add it to my PC. And so I had eBay ship it to Ship My Cards. Thankfully, they've got two addresses, and one of them is in Oregon, and it avoids sales tax. So I sent the cards to Oregon, and they land in my Ship My Cards account. Now I've got these cards. Uh, I know that the Jordan more buyers want to buy the Jordan than the whole set. So at Ship My Cards, I separated the Jordan from the rest. I sold off the others.
Oh,
I
nice.
ended up selling the Jordan. Then I found a higher grade in BGS that I bought. I stored that there. Then I sold that one 6 months later, and now I've got the grade that I was after. So uh, I tell this story predominantly for the overseas listeners that you don't have to ship every card back to your country if you're not going to keep it in your PC. So like the 101, of course, I shipped back here. Thankfully, I bought my other two favorite cards, which are my 195 and my 288 from an Australian, but that's rare. So if I'm going to keep a card, I will have it shipped from the seller in the US over to me in Australia, or if I'm going to store it over there, at any time you can ship it back to Australia and you can choose USPS or FedEx, and FedEx is very quick coming back to Australia. You just have to take the customs risk,
Yeah.
which is a real risk. It can get caught in customs, but Ship My Cards is fairly discreet. You can also declare a lower value on the card, Ryan, but you can insure it for its full value, up to $5,000. So if you're buying and selling cards worth more than 5,000, that's the challenge with Ship My Cards. Anything under 5,000, it's pretty easy and pretty clear cut.
Gotcha. Okay, good to know. Yeah, there's obviously the PSA vault. A lot of people have things vaulted here, through PSA Vault. That's kind of the one. So, but you're right, that no, for getting things over through customs and everything, it's definitely you have that little extra step and everything that's there. So, no, definitely good to know. I did want to know a little bit more about that, so that's good to hear. Um, yeah, there's definitely some things that go through it and barriers as people think, and hopefully, when they watch this, they kind of realize, things that you can do. It's not that difficult, and people that have already done it, and especially you guys do it all the time. That's good. One of the best things that I heard was you say that, like, hey, we can buy from you if you have Wise set up. We can buy from you. That kind of thing. I wanted to reiterate that before this is over, that's probably something that maybe people should look into, and don't be deterred so much by, an account setup or something like that, because I know some people are hesitant. So when Ship
Yeah.
My Cards, and some people don't like it out of Vault, and those things generally solve a lot of problems that are there inherently, and that's what they're for. So definitely good to know.
Yeah, I
So
agree, Ryan.
and so did you have anything more to say on that? Because I was going to move on to a different question.
I'd say that the premise is that 95% of the world's star cards are with owners in the US. And I'd say that as star becomes more popular in the US, by osmosis, we see it become more popular in those pockets all over the world. As you say, you've got a couple of UK, a couple of Europe. We've got about 50 to 100 people in Australia that are pretty serious with star. Obviously, you've got a lot in Canada. So I believe that what I want to help with is spreading the word for how to do business with people in the USA quickly, easily, and with trust. So, that's really what I'm happy for people to contact me about. And that's what I do a lot here in Australia is you see people dipping their toe into Star. The cards are more expensive. People become more hesitant and more nervous, Ryan. And I have people every week messaging me saying, how do you buy from the US? How do you sell to the US? And it's a really pleasant thing. And even the gent that you bought your cards off, I did some transactions with him about a year ago and he was great. And so, I recommend him to others in the group. He posts in the group, he gains trust, and you've got a trusted, person who you can buy your cards from in another country that you might not have had a year ago. So I just wanted to walk through those steps and show you guys that it can be done.
Yep, for sure. Most definitely. And it really, my whole transaction that was fairly big just for me actually putting the effort, gosh, it only took me tops 20 minutes. I mean, for everything. And I was done, for to put it through. And even, if you're going to set up a Venmo or Zelle, you're probably going to be at 10 minutes. So it was just a little bit longer. I'm going to have my cat, I have a kid, I have a new kitten here. He's running all the way all around.
Oh, lovely, mate.
Yeah. He's fun. Definitely
Uh,
energy. I know half the stuff I'm like always worried about like the
yeah, I
sheet
was going to say
getting wet.
stay away from the uncut sheet up there.
I know.
Uh,
Actually, I have something to show in a couple of weeks. Hopefully, I just bought two more, and I can't wait to show them. I'm going to keep it as a
oh
surprise for
wow,
right now, but yeah, yeah,
brilliant.
things like that, and things like that that I know that are hard for you guys to get, or things like the uncut sheets. Something
Absolutely.
that would ship like that. But those are definitely. I love the displays. If you can, when you're down here, I figured you guys like one of the things that you would like to do, and especially now. With the West Coast card show, Burbank getting bigger, now called the West Coast. You guys might come to card shows, pick some things up, and take them back with you. I figured
Yes.
that's
I know
probably.
more I know more friends in the high value cards that are doing that, Ryan, that are attending card shows in the US, and a very good friend of mine is about to go over there and he's going to help me bring some of my collection back from Ship My Cards because he's playing some golf in Phoenix. And I'd say it's a good option, for people to take a holiday, for people to go there on business. And I've even had friends I've met wanting to come to Australia to meet with me.
Awesome.
I've got something big that you'll mention at the end of the podcast that someone might want to pay me a visit in Australia to buy from me. So, uh, isn't this great seeing people form genuine friendships where it starts with the mutual love of Star, um, but we connect on so many other levels as well?
Speaking of that, so a great story for you. When I was collecting, so I kind of got in and out. I was really heavy into it when I was 14. I got back into it when I was 18, and then I got back to it when I was 30, and I'm 49 now. So I when I was 30, I actually got a pen pal and he was in Australia and we started sending out, he loved the Celtics and we would send each other cards. He was the coolest guy. He wanted to buy, I think I had a koozie rookie. And back then you can get those so cheap. I mean, back in 2000, I think this was like 2005. And it was so awesome. We started sending each other mementos. He sent me a Vegemite. I tried Vegemite. I don't know how you guys do it. I do not know how you guys
My
do it.
5-year-old daughter eats it for breakfast every day, Ryan. So
No, really.
if you've never had Vegemite as a gentleman from the US or a lady from the US, you must try it.
You got to try it. It's definitely unique. I remember that. I was like, "Oh my gosh, they eat
It's
this
an
all
acquired taste.
the time." Yeah, but it was really really cool and that was actually like as far as just a country interacting on a personal level and then we're friends and then we lost it over time because it was mail and everything and but it was really really cool to have so that was an experience that actually I had yeah so I thought obviously a super friendly country but it's
Yes.
just yeah it was just fun and whatnot so one thing before we wrap up one thing I wanted to ask so it sounded one thing I did want to you guys are a little more would you say that the Star Group is just like here kind of there's a vast majority that are Jordan focused, and that's kind of where it's at.
Yeah, I would say the interesting thing is like in my professional life, part of my job is actually building engaged communities on Facebook. So that's something I take pride in. And what we've tried to do here in Australia is I'd say the entry level to Star is through Jordan. That's the first thing that I'll say. So people like Jordan, and many of these people start with the Fleer 57 and the sticker. They think it's the rookie card, but they're paying notice to what you guys are saying, Ryan, and they're like, "Oh, what's this 101?" Then the gateway drug to Star is the 101. Next, they become aware of the whole collection of 27 cards that is the Michael Jordan Star collection. Four of them are the 5x7s. So, like you described, they tend to start with the 84 base set, then the 85, then the 86, and then the 5x7s, and then you've got 27 cards. But then what do you do, Ryan? I think that the most common thing that I see people then doing is they go back to the rookie cards, the Akeem rookie, the Stockton rookie, um, some of the valuable bird cards, some of the short print runs like the Mavs bag, like your Sydney Moncrief Kosh card I saw you selling in the group this
Yep.
morning. And one of my really wonderful mentors, Adam Knoll, he got me into bags. Now that's a slippery slope, isn't it? My
Yeah.
goodness, I don't have a whole collection of bags, but I did buy my first 101 Bulls bag last year from a fella who's now a very good friend, and we did an in-person deal on that.
Oh, that's
Uh,
awesome.
yeah, it was really good. Like it's hard to buy a bag of that value from overseas, but to buy it from someone local was good. So I think there's a natural progression. In Australia, in my group, I would say 50% of our group right now is chasing a 101. So if you're watching this and you want to sell a 101, I've I've probably got your buyer. I'd say
Good to know.
people in Australia, Ryan, I don't think there's too many people that are dealing in the six-figure value cards. A lot of people dealing in the five-figure. So a lot of people chasing like a BGS 5 to 7.5 of a 101 or a PSA 4 to 6 of a 101.
Mhm.
And there's a select few that are buying cards worth more than that. Like, I've got a good friend and he basically buys anything he can find of high value. And so, you know, the thing I like too, Ryan, is, these people are all high level, we're smart people, we're professionals, we're business owners, there's a screening process. You can't afford a 10,000 or a $50,000 card if you um, don't have yourself together, so to
Right.
speak. And I think that there's a really lovely criteria there too that I love being interact able to interact with people who think at a high level and operate at a high level, and they've got something behind them as well, Ryan.
Yeah, yeah. And that's one of the things about the groups that I like is they're not there's some groups that you go on and it's just a I don't want to say some of it a big portion is childish or it's just kind of as they say nonsense. There's a lot of that, but the Star, the Star group and people I've interacted with Star just just top-notch folks and it's really really cool. And generally know their stuff and a lot have been around the hobby for a long time. A lot of star collectors have been around. And there's a bunch, before me even, early 80s, right when Star, and it's great. Kind of like meeting Steve Taft and hearing the stories and everything. So I highly recommend that if you get a chance to come out to the Burbank show, the next West, they call it the West Coast now, but or one upcoming that Steve Taft might attend and maybe meet him.
That sounds
He's
amazing. And like I've learnt so much from so many members of the group, and I want to say thank you to the members that I've met. You guys know who you are. And also, I want to thank the admins and moderators too, Ryan, because what you mentioned pertains to the quality of the group, and that's really only done by screening members. You will get the odd scammer who comes in and they prove themselves to be dodgy straight away. They're removed immediately. So the quality of the group is determined by screening and who you let in, and the quality of the dialogue as well, isn't it? Like if someone is rude or uncouth or rubs people up the wrong way, they're ejected from the group as they should be.
right, right. Yeah. So it's definitely a huge portion and it makes that connection and you can make the connections and trust when you have these groups that work. And so it's really cool to hear that you put one together there and kind of organizing Australia in a way and helping each other, get over the challenges that are specific to you, the challenges that you guys have when trying to do these transactions for these for the cards and stuff. And so speaking of that, you do have some, and I want to put this out there for my folks as we talked about doing these transactions. Nick is going to be putting his 27 card set up. So at some point right now he has actually you have them for sale in different various places, and I'm going to put your email in my in the description of this. So you can go ahead and speak to that right now and talk to what you have out there.
Yeah, thank you, Ryan. So like I've always loved accumulating and putting things together, but also I suppose what you might call clocking the game. So like my goal fairly early on was to get the Michael Jordan 27 card set, and to sell it. I'm buying a property in about 6 months' time. I would like to use that for a deposit for the property. But more than that, I want to do this and then I want to start again. So my goal is to accumulate the 27. I've got a Star Auto I'm going to keep. I've got a spare of the 84 set apart from the 101, and I've got my 101 bag. So they're not for sale, but I've got a full set of the 27. It's in two different places. Two-thirds are with me in Australia. The other one-third is with Ship My Cards. But I figure it's the perfect time to sell it. The other thing that's happened, Ryan, is the Australian dollar is now worth 60 US cents. So the Australian dollar has crashed. This makes it the perfect time for me to sell, and it makes you guys from the US the perfect time to buy
Uh-huh.
because I'm going to be negotiable on price because I will win regardless because of the dollar. So I see it as an achievement. I've spent 2 years building my set. I've got them all. You know, it's kind of like watching my son with Pokemon and he's got to catch them all.
Yep, yep, yep.
So I would love to
Remember
sell
that.
my set to someone from the US sometime between now and the end of the fall in the US. So sometime in the middle of 2025. And that's what I'm available for you to reach out. Obviously, serious buyers only. You know, the total price is around the low six figures. You know, so no tire kickers, obviously. I don't want to receive a million emails. But I haven't actually seen a whole set of the 27 go for sale. And I've been watching the auctions for a few years. Like, have you ever seen all 27 sold
No,
in one
no, I
go?
was going to say I've never seen a 27. I know one person who, but he didn't have extras of the 101, so he was actually selling more like 25 or 26 of them. He
Mm,
kept two, like,
I will
um,
sell 27. You get the 101. You get the
yeah,
195.
yep, you've got the entire thing up. I know. It's like the one card I will never give up, or I will always have one. If I'm even upgrading the other ones, I'll always have a 101. You know, I have to
Yep.
have Michael Jordan's rookie like that.
Yes.
That's always kind of the mainstay of my collection, and will always be. You know, I
Well,
have
I agree,
cards.
Ryan. That's why I'm keeping the bag. So, you know, keeping my fingers crossed for PSA to start grading these bags. So bring
Honestly,
it
to
on.
me, that is the grail. That is my grail. I'll get there at one point. I do want to get my would be to keep the one I have now, have also a PSA 7 I'd like to get, and then I'd like to get a bag. So I'd like to
Yes.
would be my trifecta that I'll get to.
The
Um,
Holy Trinity, Ryan.
the bags really are to me, and especially the bags are the wild card because bags are so unique. One, they're uniquely star. They're unique in a couple different perspectives. That one, they're hard to value because you really have to see them in person to be able to judge the condition. So they're tough, but they're factory sealed star. It's really the best thing that you can possibly have. But the real wild card is going to be, and I think this will happen within, hopefully, I was hoping this year, but we'll see. But I'm leaning towards it happening within the next two, is PSA grading those bags. When that happens, the value shoot on bags is going to be there. There's going to be a premium, but that's going to solve the first problem. Hopefully, if they're grading by the card, you know, the top card, they'll do that. I've heard that they could do the bag condition itself, and they
Yes.
also can go by the top card. So they're looking at kind of a multi-dimensional way to do that. If they do, the 101 is a perfect bag to get your Jordan. You know, that's what all really anyone cares about in that bag. So, you know, you really could be in a good situation having that bag, you know, and with prices going up, but also being able to tell the condition, meaning you can buy it online with confidence, you know.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. Like, you know, thank God Michael's on the front of that bag. Some of the bags where he's sort of halfway through the set, it's just not the same, is it really?
Right. Right. I know. That's the like the one thing when you get, you know, like a Barkley bag, you know, or 76ers, you know, with the X, it's like the second card. You don't see it. You got Moses Malone and or something on the top. But right. Yeah, it's definitely for the bags that I have. You want it up top, but like the Gatorade bag, you're like, why can't it just be on the top? But nope, the 101 is that will be there. So if they do that, which I'm hoping they do, that will actually be easier for them for me to buy if because I don't I only see like at the big shows I only see a couple of bags. I don't, you know, they're definitely not at local shows. You know, that's cream of the crop, and they're just getting rare. I know three or four people who ripped 101 bags this year.
Yes.
So yeah, and so they don't make them anymore. That's, that to me, it's the grail piece of all of Star. But so that's really awesome to hear you have one.
I agree, and thank you. I want to thank my mate AD down here. He knows who he is. He's the guy that sold me the bag, and he had plenty of offers from the US. So, AD, you're a legend, mate.
Yeah, super cool. Um, all right, I think basically transacting and wanted to talk over kind of what you were up to and how you got involved and everything. Did you have anything else before we
Oh,
finish off
I, ju-
here?
I just want to say thank you all for inspiring me. Like those of you in the group, the friendships are great. Thank you for leading, Ryan. You're one of the leaders in the industry. Thank you to Mike Jones, Adam Nolan, my crew over here. You guys know who you are. If you're in Australia, yeah, my group's called Michael Jordan Rookie Era Cards, 84 to 86. And obviously, if you're anywhere else, please join the 83 to 86 star USA group. Like that is I think it's the best Facebook group in the world, Ryan. I really do.
Absolutely. It's addicting. You get up and you check it. It's like one of the first things you're just like, hey, what happened here?
Absolutely. And in Australia, actually I'll just mention one final thing. Who likes making money while they sleep? So one of
Yes.
the coolest things in Australia is so many of my transactions are done, so many of my interactions are done during the Australian day and the US evening and vice versa. So, I will wake up in the morning and I will check, and there's 10 different new cards for sale in the group. If I've been negotiating with someone the night before, they'll check their DMs overnight and I will be agreeing on deals. So I've always been, enamored by this concept of trying to use the world's time clock to optimize how you operate in your business. And I think that when you deal with people overseas and in different time zones, you've got that real excitement. Like it's just fun, Ryan. And yeah, let's keep doing it. Let's tighten the bonds of all of us star lovers all over the world because there's so many benefits. Take holidays, go and buy cards from people and pick them up in person, shake the hand, go to a nice restaurant, have a beer. Let's open up the world, Ryan.
Oh, great, great perspective, man. Love to hear it. Now, really, really great talking to you and really cool to
Yeah,
hear about,
wonderful.
the perspective and challenges and trying to make it work. And it's really good to hear what you're doing down there. And I know we'll be in touch and
Yeah,
we'll,
absolutely, man.
you'll probably have deals here and there. Maybe especially I'm looking past, like we all have our own little things, but once I get past a few things, I'm going to be expanding, especially in the bag area. So.
Yeah, and isn't it nice to help each other and you know what someone's chasing? The final thing I'll say is I take pride in connecting people. Like if I know you need bags, if I know someone's got them, I'll hook you guys
Yeah,
up. And
you've
I
done
think
that,
more
and you've done
people are
that for
doing that.
me. Yeah, and
Yeah, it's
I know
fun.
you're a great contact. So anyone, so for all the viewers, for been watching and seeing, trying to figure this out, look at Nick in the group. Check his email address. Again, I'll have that in the description. Again, check his cards. You can reach out to him for what he has up for sale, and then yeah, for things that you might need or want, go to him. That's
Absolutely. I'm super happy to help, especially those that are interested in the international transacting. And yeah, my love is Michael Jordan Star. I do collect his XRCs too, but we won't talk about that today. And I'd love to link you up with something that you're looking for. So thank you.
awesome. All right. Thanks a lot, Nick. Appreciate it. And
Thanks, Ryan.
yep.
Lovely to be here and good to meet you, everybody. Thank you for your time.
All right. Thanks, man. Appreciate it.